All right, everyone, just setting up. I'll be with you shortly. If you can hear me, if you can say so in the chat, that'd be great. Thanks. Cool, thanks. I'm a bit early, so I'll just let this run for a couple of minutes while I get ready. All right, so I think we've got a few people in. So it's not quite 10 o'clock, but with the latency and things, by the time you hear me say this, it should be 10. Yeah, we've got Tidal 1.7. Been getting some projects finished, so I've actually got a bit more time, and it's been ages since we did one of these Q&A streams, so I thought let's do one of those. I want to get back to doing things like Tidal function of the week and things like that as well, and generally do more live streaming. At one point I'll do a more kind of comprehensive video just talking about Tidal 1.7, but can go through some of that this session as well. So let's see. We've got a question already from Mr. Reason, who asks, can we find out what can be controlled so far with control buses and whatnot? I think first I'll do a quick demo of the new stuff with buses. What is a bus? Something you ride, but this URL here will have the main answer to your question if you want to have a look at that, Mr. Reason. Oh, it's not come through in the stream version of the chat too well, but hopefully you can click on it if you're watching it on YouTube. That's the actual link there. So yeah, what's a bus? So normally we've had this situation where we've got this tidal system, which is really based around trigger messages. Like in this example, there's these 4 notes being played on a very slow loop. But each one should be modulating between these 2 values of the LPF, the low pass filter, the cutoff frequency. But it's not working, it's only picking the first one. And that's because the effects only get set when the sound is first triggered, and that means that you can't actually change the sound while it's playing until now. So the new thing is, instead of LPF, we can put LPF bus, and we have to give a number that's sort of unique for the buses. And that means that these values will be sent to that bus and then sent back into the pattern, kind of, but whilst sort of sent straight to the sound while it's playing. So this tells both the sound to listen on this bus, number 1, for these sounds, and it also will send these numbers, and it also send those numbers. So I'm a bit tired. So now if we run this, it should send, yeah, there we go. The nice thing is that we can even change this while it's playing. There we go. So this is actually a lot of fun. And it's not something I've really played with very much. I've just sort of made it. Well, Julian Roriber, who made Super Dirt, did most of the work, but I did all the stuff on the Tidal side, and haven't actually got to play with them that much. But it's kind of nice sort of having sounds playing and manipulating them. This is an example where it will play just 2 notes over 32 cycles. Oh, that Q trigger isn't really happening. Maybe if I reset, I don't know. Oh, I know, it needs to be shorter here. Yeah, this wasn't quite working as I was hoping, actually. Don't want Q trigger, I just want trigger, I think. No. Doesn't want to make any sound. Huh. What's wrong with that? Something here is getting a bit funny. What would that be? Huh. Weird, it doesn't like the trigger. The cut, rather. Okay, so now I've got that playing over 32 cycles, so it's a really long sound. And now I can actually control it from another pattern, like here. I have to panic to make it stop. But yeah, I guess this means that we can now make drone music with Tidal, which is going to be exciting in the chill out rooms of Algoraves in the future. So yeah, so some of these work and some don't. Like, unfortunately, you can't. There's no N bus, for example. If you try to do that, then I think you just get an error. Control pattern N can't be sent to a bus. And there's a few of these which you can't send to a bus. And if you look at that URL I tried to post earlier, which I've now lost. It'll give a list which is this. So tends to be things which are to do with time, to do with scheduling, like begin and end, and shaping the sound. It wouldn't make too much sense to change these things on the fly. It would be nice to be able to control speed, for example, but unfortunately, because of the way time is calculated, that's quite hard to get working. And one other thing is that this will be fixed probably in the next version. But for example, if you have pan, normally it'd be 0 and 1 to go left and right. But if you use pan bus, 0 is actually center, and to do left you have to do -1 and 1. So basically, with internally Super Dirt and Super Collider in general, the pan goes from -1 to 1 instead of 0 to 1. So I've got to just scale it at some point to make it so it's the same. Yeah, so there's quite a few that don't work, but everything else should. Almost everything should. Okay. So if there's any more questions, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll talk a bit more about Tidal 1.7. Okay. How can we integrate the new bus functionality with our custom synth depth? I understand it's calling nmap in Super Collider internally, right? Yeah, that is quite a good question. I don't know the answer because, as I said earlier, Julian did all the work. I was kind of thinking that you wouldn't have to do anything to your custom synth defs, that it should just work. Because what Tidal's doing, it's not sending any messages to SuperDirt for controlling the buses. It's just sending messages straight to Super Collider synthesizer. That should mean something to you if you're a Super Collider programmer, which I'm actually not really. I'm just going to have a quick look at the code to see if I can work out what things look like. Yeah, bus mapping. I think if you go to SuperDirt and look at pull request 218, that is the thing that has the implementation of this stuff, I think, on the SuperDirt side or thereabout. And hopefully you'll find your answer in there. But as I say, I think that it just works for you, and you don't have to do anything. But I could be wrong. One thing you will have to do is define the bus parameters for your extra. If you've got different parameters, you'll have to just define the bus parameter as well as your normal one, like this. So if you look in the params.hs, that'll give a clue about that. Okay, I've got quite deep into the code side there, the innards of Tidal. It'd be nice to talk about something a bit more accessible to those who aren't so familiar with the innards of Haskell and SuperDirt. And one thing I'm really enjoying is press. So let's have a look at that. So this is a nice repeating rhythm, quite simple. If I put on a simple. So what does press do? Let's try it. It's just a function that just takes a pattern as input, and let's change that to a kick actually. Oops. So maybe you can hear it's kind of pushing all of the events a little bit forward in time, sort of pushing them onto an offbeat. So here is without the press. And then when I add the press, everything becomes a bit late. So maybe it's helpful to look at this in here. So A, B, C, D, E, draw line. Right. So you can see that, well, let's have a look at it without the press. Nice and simple, A, B, C, D, E. And then with the press. So it's, I mean, the scale's different because it has to fit in more space to show how it's spaced out. But there's like 2 empty steps there, and then 2 steps full of the A, another 2 empty steps, and 2 steps full of the B. Yeah, maybe it's easier to show a comparison in the MIDI notation. So what it's really doing is this. So everything is like being shifted a half of the way into its step, including the ones that are already in a substep. And that's basically making it syncopated. So it's just pushing everything into an offbeat. So you can use jux with that. Let's have a bit more interest. Or you could do a before press. Yeah, it kind of stumbles a bit there. But yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had with this. Okay. So that's press. There's also, if you want to press it by a different amount, say push it 2/3 of the way in, then you could do press by 2/3 to do that. Oh. Lovely. Yes, I've anticipated your question there, Prospero. Is it possible to add more than one rest, which would have the effect of making the press effect stronger? Yes, by doing that. Or put another pattern instead of the rest. I'll have to think about that second one, but yeah, press by is the answer to your first one. Yeah, presses. Yeah, I have to think about that one. That's a interesting thought. If you could have another pattern and kind of squash it in front, squash the events in front of the, yeah, that would be weird. I have to think about that one. Yeah. Okay. So another thing I wanted to talk about was, yeah, there's a couple of things. When mod is interesting. Was it when mod? Oh no, ply. So ply has always been a little bit broken, but now it's fixed. So it's super simple. Ply 3 will repeat each event 3 times. And you can pattern that if you want. So it used to be that it would go a bit crazy if you had more than one event happening at the same time. And it doesn't anymore. It works fine with that. So now, but yeah, one strange thing about this now is that you can ply by a non-integer. So let's say ply 2.5. The first time round it's playing it by 2, and the second time round it's playing it by 3 in quite an interesting uneven way. So I could say play it by 4/3 maybe. So I can't seem to type today. Let's put high top. So if you're looking for ways to make weird uneven beats, then playing by a rational number, a non-integral number, I think is the way forward. Lots of fun to be had with that as well. Yeah, okay. That's the solution for that. Yeah, if you had chords with ply, it would basically arpeggiate them before. Which was not intended. That was a bug, and that's now fixed. If you do want to arpeggiate it, then there's arpeggiator functions for that. What else is there? Yeah, so you've always been able to make random floating point numbers for like speed, range, 1, 2, and nice. And also there's, does this work here? Yeah. And this is iRand is for integer, random integers. So you can hear it's just jumping up and down octaves in this case. But until now, there hasn't actually been a random stream of Boolean values available. In this little example, so is switching between 2 patterns. And normally here before you'd kind of probably manually put in Boolean pattern. So here, for the first third of it is playing this BD, and for the last 2/3 it's playing claps. You can use 1s and 0s instead of T's and F's, which stands for true and false. And so on. But if you just wanted that to be random, you could do that with brand. So on. So that's that. Right. Any more questions? No. So what else yeah, so that's the brand. I'll document these properly. We're going to come up with a new documentation site and get everything nicely up to date on there. What else is there? Quite a lot of things you couldn't pattern before, but now you can. So for example, byte is now, the first parameter is now patternable. And there's at least one more. Yeah. Thought there was. Yeah, iRand is now patternable, binary, N, and when mod. Sure there was another one. Yeah, maybe not. So by patternable, I mean if you had a byte licks, you byte a pattern into bits, let's byte it into 4 bits, and then play with those bits. So I could swap those round. So I've bitten this into 4 bits and I'm patterning those 4 bits here. It's quite fun. If you change that to chew, it'll be a bit different. I've got a whole video on that. But now you can actually pattern the byte if you want to. Yeah, I wasn't sure why I'd want to do that, but clearly it makes some really interesting patterns. That's why. Yes, so this that is indeed equivalent to run. So if I had a pattern of samples with run 8, that would go up from 0 to 7, and this is the same. Except you can change it like this. I think you could even do this. Yeah. So the first time it goes from 4 to 7, and the second time around it goes from 4 to 12. Good fun. Is %n still working? Yeah, I think so. Hope so. Yeah. Oh, with the %. So if I put %, 16 here. Yes. So this is layering up to subpatterns and then changing how many steps you take from the subpatterns each time round. And yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think it's taking 4 steps from each pattern the first time and 8 the second time, but no, this isn't new. So this style has been around for a long time. So there's different ways of layering up sounds. Stick with the CPU samples. So if I take that and put another one on top, got 3 on top of 4 within the same cycle. And they line up according to the cycle. The curly bracket makes it line up according to the beat, so that the 5 will match with the 0, the 4 will match with the 1, and so on. And because they're different lengths, they rotate. But in terms of lining up how many played per cycle, it depends on the first subpattern. So this has 4 things in, so that means that for all patterns or subpatterns, it will take 4 steps from each of them. And you can keep lowering them up. But if you wanted it to be a different amount, then that's when you'd use the percent to say, okay, I actually want to take 16 from each one, and that needs to go faster. So there's a nice polyrhythm happening there. Right, yeah. So, yeah, I wasn't completely sure that was going to work, to be honest. So, yeah, when, yeah, you can do the range. Like this. And yeah, you can change this. Yeah, basically this is, you can make this a pattern as well. So it's patterning both sides of the range. Is there a function taking an array being equivalent to? No. Yeah, so this is a limitation of Tidal actually. So yeah, there's the stack function which will layer up various functions, and that will work the same as this. And so the question is, what is the function that would do this? And it would be lovely if there could be something like stack poly or something that did a polyrhythmic version of a stack. But unfortunately, that's not really possible with how Tidal works in the inside. There's no, because a pattern isn't represented as data but as behavior. It's just this thing which does stuff, and you can transform it, but you can't actually look inside it and see what is there when you're combining it. So there's no way of writing this stack poly function at the moment. Maybe one day it'd be solved, but it's a limitation of how Tidal works. This can't be written. It does exist in the mini notation, but that's because it's like an embedded language within Tidal, and while it's parsing it, it does some behind the scenes stuff to make sure that things are slowed down by the right amount so that the polyrhythm works out. That's one of the, it might be the only thing which you can do in the mini notation that you can't do outside of it. Yeah, I'd really like to solve that one day. Yeah, it's something that used to be possible on previous versions of Tidal that had a different representation, but isn't now. Right. So yes. So okay. So that used to work, but now you have to do this. Yeah. Yes. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm not sure whether that is desirable or not. Yeah, I'm not sure why. Not sure exactly why that happened. I've got a feeling that there was a bug fix for something, and it might have changed the parsers so that you couldn't put spaces in there anymore. But the question is that a bug or not? I don't see why you shouldn't be able to put a space in there, so I might raise an issue about that. If there is something that doesn't work as it did before, then do shout in the forums or create an issue on GitHub, and we'll have a look at that. In theory, code shouldn't break between versions unnecessarily. Okay. So Aloy asks again about my editor's getting a bit messy now about this, exactly what's going on. It sounds nice because this is a nice set of samples, but what it's basically doing is switching between this for the end pattern and this. So this syntax with the angle brackets means pick one of these values per cycle. So the first time round it'll pick 7, and the second time round it'll pick 16, then I'll go back to 7 and keep repeating. You can put in more options if you want it, if you want. And what this has been expanded to is just the run of numbers from 0 up to 17, and for this the same, except I'm not sure if I can be bothered to type them all out, but you get the idea. So it's saying play all the CPU samples from 0 to 7, and then the second time around from 0 to 16. Okay. Is there the possibility to take an external variable into a mini notation double quote thing? Yeah. So yes, it is. So you can do let's say 1, 2, 2. So let's say you wanted to receive a control message into the pattern. I think this works. So you can do set the control value for that's floating point. So that's what end patterns are. They're floating point. That just means they're not whole numbers, basically. Give it a name. Oh no, sorry, it's setf. Then the name, which we're using here, and then the pattern. And this you can actually set from Open Sound Control, OSC. So an OSC message is a network message, basically. It's a way of sending values from one bit of software to another, usually music bit software, but it works for other software as well. And there is a page about it on the wiki. See if I can find that, and I'll post in the link. Yeah, controller input. Bum, bum, bum. Excuse me, I'm just going to capture this window. That's the wrong one. So, yeah, if you go to this URL, you should be able to find out all about it. Yeah, when you start Tidal, it says something like where's that confusing me there. I've switched it off in this version, but yeah, it says something like listening to controls on port 6010. That's the OSC port it's listening to. And if you send an OSC message with a path/control followed by a string, which would be the value you want to send and the number or whatever it is here, then you can do that. And it should change the thing in that pattern for you. But as I say, have a look at the controller input page. Yeah, it's telling you to do this CF to receive the message, but actually you can just put it straight in the mini notation as I just showed you. I should update that page. I haven't not quite set up to send the OSC, but Tidal is receiving it, and you can also set it internally like this. This is quite nice to do actually, because this will update while things are running, so you can edit it on the fly. It's quite nice. Okay. Yeah, that's right. You don't need to reevaluate the D1. It's like sending patterns into one pattern into the other. I've got a video in the course about this on the Tidal Club forum. But I find this really nice for sending binary patterns. Like you can do struct and then something like meter, and then I'm not sure if I spelled that right, and then set b because it's a binary pattern. Meter, yeah. Yeah, I've crashed it. Yeah, okay. And then use the same thing in another pattern. Running at the same time. So they're both running off the same binary pattern, but just transformed a bit. But then if I change this, so add some extra events, everything changes. It's just a really nice, fun way of linking together different patterns, so they have a kind of underlying rhythm to them, but are transforming it in different ways. Yeah, bus black to buses. So let's play Bev. I might not play Bev because that might make Google shut my stream down because it's copyrighted material. Let's think of another long sound. Maybe fire, I think. So I could just say I could do this with once, so it only plays once. And you have to think ahead of time which ones you want to pattern. So let's say the amount of reverb I'll put on bus 1 and set it at 0 to start with, maybe. And also the size of the reverb I'll put on bus 2. And what else will I change? Squiz on bus 3. Squiz bus. So that's playing now. And here I could set the squiz to 0.5, except I can actually make this loop. Let's make it loop 8 times. Yeah. So that's basically making it really distorted. And the same with the room. Not sure if that's doing anything actually. Let's try it with the non-zero one to start with. Yeah. But really it'll work nicely for anything. So if I just had and then had maybe the low pass frequency controlled by a sine wave. Needs to be a bit higher than that. Actually, I need to add a segment in here. So I've segmented it by 128, which means that it's sampling this sine wave 128 times a cycle, maybe. Yeah, 128 times a cycle. So you're just going to get a much smoother transition on that effect. I'm not sure if you'd be able to hear it that well. Let's compare it without the bass. Yeah, maybe it's slightly better, because otherwise the effect is only changing for each sound, whereas this is smoothly changing all the sounds. Is there a limit to number of buses? There is a theoretical limit, but I think you're quite unlikely to hit it. I think it probably does go up to something like 128 or something like that, but I'm not sure. It's all quite experimental, this feature. It will develop more, because behind it is more interaction between Tidal and SuperDirt. Like when you start Tidal, it asks SuperDirt for a certain number of reserved buses. So there's like a protocol going on between Tidal and SuperDirt for the first time. And that's just the start, and there's going to be a lot more stuff like, for example, having SuperDirt tell Tidal about sounds, like say how bright the different sounds are, so that it'd be possible to pattern sounds according to their brightness or some other timbral parameter, how distorted they are, or what their pitch is, that kind of thing. I think that would be a lot of fun. So yeah, more kind of communication between Tidal and SuperDirt in the future. Okay. Yeah, yeah. This is yeah. So yeah, this stuff's all about being able to control effects separately from notes, which you could always do with global effects, but this is for all effects apart from that list of effects I gave at the start. There are limitations though, like one thing about this is they're monophonic, these buses, so that means that there can only be one number active at a time. It's just like a pipe of numbers. You can't send two numbers at once, otherwise one will cancel out the other. Yeah, so this will develop the user interface for these buses. Will develop. It'd be nice if you could run these buses without having to give a number, for example. It should just be able to pick one that's available, but we're not quite there with that yet. Okay. So yeah, any more questions? I kind of feel like I've gone through all the things that I had in my head I wanted to cover. So I say I will go over this again in a more organized way, make a little video just going through the new features. I'll document the new features at the same time, make it a bit more accessible. But yeah, otherwise, if there aren't questions, maybe call it a night. Oh yeah, how's the book coming along? It hasn't really. So I was focusing on making the course materials for quite a while. The last couple of weeks I've been working on another book that's been delayed by years actually, but a collaborative book on live coding that hopefully be out this year on MIT Press. That's finished. And then I've also been working on an album. But as I say, we are getting back into documenting things, making a new website, and as part of that, be looking again at the book materials, either integrating that with the website or working on it as a book. I do like the idea of making this book about tidal patterns. It will happen at some point, but it's just quite hard to get any real progress done while also having these other big projects, but I will get to it at some point. I mean, so part of the stuff for this new documentation website is it'll all be in a nice thing called Markdown, which will make it much easier to reuse parts in other projects like books and stuff. So WhenMod, I think the WhenMod thing was just so WhenMod is where you do scan. Yeah, I seem to be doing this a lot this session. So WhenMod is where you say 4 times out of every 8 repetitions, do this. So it'll play 4 cycles of it normally and then 4 cycles of it with this hurry 2 applied. So the difference is now that you can pattern these. I'm not quite sure how the maths works out with that. That seems a bit freaky to me. And another thing is that you can use fractional numbers, so you can say 1.5 times out of every 4. It's the other way around, isn't it? It's like yeah, it's only applying this. It's applying this for 3.5 times out of every. Yeah, 2.5 times out of every 4 or something. Oh, I don't know. It's a pretty strange function, this. I don't tend to use it that much myself anymore, to be honest. I like to use things like, what is it? Is it when? I don't think it is. No, it is while. So it'll run this when it's true. So I'm saying apply hurry to whenever this is true. So for the first and second cycle it's true, and for the third it's not. So that's quite a nice way to do it, I think. So yeah, look at while. Okay, I think that's our hour. It's been fun doing this after such a long time. Try and get back in the flow. There's quite a lot of other events coming up. There is going to be a Tidal meetup, which is being organised on the club forum, and I think mainly in the Discord, really. There's a meetup group on the Tidal Discord. If you want to join the Discord, if you go to the Tidal Cycles website and find the community tab, you'll find a link to the Discord there. It's getting a bit more active than the Rocket Chat. Oh, I say that, and actually it's not on the Tidal wiki yet. Okay. All right. I'll find it. One sec. I'll update the wiki now as well. Okay. I'll just put this. That's the link, but I'll put it in the chat as well. There's that, and there's the club forum where a lot of things happen, and as well as the chat. But that's, people seem to be moving to the Discord rather than the Rocket Chat on TopLap at the moment. Okay, all right, thanks for being there, and look forward to the next one, and see you soon. Take care, bye.